us tonight. We have another really special guest, as we've had in the past. I think you'll be very excited to hear our conversation. Again, we don't say a whole lot about our guests. We let them introduce him or herself. This is July. On August the 1st, we will start AfroSolo Arts Festival 16. We're calling it AfroSolo Arts Festival Suite 16. If you get a chance to check our website out at www.afrosolo.org, you'll see all the things that we have planned. So go check it out and then come see some of the events. We have 5 major events. 4 of them are free. The last one is the Black Voices series, and I think you'll really like seeing that too. As a matter of fact, we're going to do a Sweet 16 special. For the first 16 days in August, you will be able to get tickets for our Black Voices series for only $10. The regular price will be $25. So as part of our Sweet 16 celebration, the first 16 days of August, the tickets will only be $10. Now, back to our show tonight. As I said, we have a wonderful guest with us, and when I was speaking to him earlier, I told him that we would have a very fascinating discussion. There were some things that he didn't know that I know about him that will make it fascinating. But so much with the talk. Let me go ahead and introduce our guest by his first name and have him tell a little bit about himself. Our guest is Nicolas. How are you doing, Nicolas?
I'm doing just fine, just fine. Happy to be here.
Well, we're very glad that you are here.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about this conversation because I've thought about it and hoped to have had it for a long time, even when you were traveling in Russia. Recently I was thinking, but we couldn't do it then. So tell us a little bit who you are and where you come from.
I am Nicolas Bearde. I'm born in Nashville, Tennessee, raised there till about the age of 18. Went off to the military, discovered some things in several countries, including Japan. Spent a lot of time in Japan, a couple of years, where I became a full-fledged professional singer. I sort of dabbled with that most of my life, off and on, but in Japan, that's when I determined that that's where I wanted to go.
Wow. Now let's go back, though. Let's go back to the beginning. Do you remember the first time you were on stage singing?
Well, the first time I was actually on stage, I was not singing. I was actually doing a play, but I was about, I think I was about 6, 7 years old, something like that.
In Nashville?
In Nashville.
Do you remember that play?
Church play, yeah. Church. And I remember I didn't learn my lines.
Okay.
But it was the first improvisation I did. So I improvised my lines, and I must have been very cute because nobody chastised me after the fact. So.
Sure.
But now back to music, though. I spent all of my childhood singing.
Oh, really?
All of my childhood
Okay,
singing,
good.
yeah.
And was this in church or in other avenues?
Some of it was church, but most of it was just for fun, singing with my family, my cousins, and my brother, and you know, we used to work with my grandfather, who had a job cleaning up model homes and new housing developments, and we would sing all the popular hits of the day, and it was kind of, I don't mean to cast any shadows over this, but you know, it's kind of like Michael Jackson and his brothers and sisters, because I was the one that knew everything. I knew all the leads, I knew all the background parts and all that stuff, and so I would always like insinuate myself into the lead of the songs. And my brother and 2 cousins, my cousin Eddie and my cousin Hazel Robinson, they would all form 3-part harmony, and we'd doo-wop our way to the job. And
wow.
Yeah.
Now, did you take any classes? When did you start studying music?
I never really studied music until the closest I came to actually studying music was when I got into choir, which is in junior high school. My cousin Hazel, when I was in 7th grade, came to me one day and said, "I want to see you at the end of school. Meet me at this room at 3:30 or whatever it was." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Just show up." So I came to the room, and there sitting in the room was Ms. Dawson.
Okay, and before we go any further, let's just let the audience know that Nicolas and I, unbeknownst to him, went to the same school.
Yes.
At the time, I don't know if we knew each other because he was a few years older than me, but this was in Nashville, Tennessee,
Yes.
in East Nashville, and there was one prominent school in East Nashville that a lot of East Nashvillians went to. Then there was another one called Hayes. You know,
Yes.
I remember Haynes. But for most of us, it was Meigs. It was the Meigs Mavericks. And it went from, I don't think we had kindergarten at that time.
No,
we had
didn't have
first
kindergarten.
grade through the 12th grade. It was
Exactly.
all black. It was small, probably 300, 400? More? 500
it was
students?
more. It was more
Okay.
than that.
So almost everybody in East Nashville went to it. It was almost like a family because the teachers knew you and they knew your family and they knew your parents. They knew your
Sometimes
siblings.
their parents.
And sometimes their parents. It's really, when we talk sometimes about old school black close-knit community, a lot of the people in the area knew each other, or knew somebody who knew somebody that was related to you or had some connection with you through church or through school or through brothers or sisters or whatever. So Nicolas and I have that connection in that we went to the same school. So when we talk about being at Meigs, we have the same experience.
Yes.
So you were talking about going to an event after school.
Well, yeah, I was persuaded to come to this room, and I went to the room, and there is Miss Dawson, Miss Tommy B. Dawson, by the way, who basically brought me into the world of spirituals, some classical vocal work, material, pop music, pop material, things that I would never have gone
Yes.
out seeking on my own, but because of her influence and because of my joy of singing and doing choral works, I had a chance to really expand my palette and my understanding and appreciation for music.
Well, she did the same thing for me in the sense that I'm not sure, 7th or 8th or 9th grade, I took a class that wound up being music appreciation. And we did do the Broadway shows, we did the local, we did classical, and that was where I first began to understand and appreciate the different mediums of music.
Yes.
So she was very influential in a lot of people's lives.
Yes, she was indeed.
Okay.
And we spoke earlier of Mr. Davis, and Mr. Davis was the English teacher that I studied with. He also expanded my understanding and knowledge of the literary world, and also a taste of the theatrical world, although I only did one play with him. But his appreciation of the language and of theater and good literature was something that I felt he passed on to me and several other students. I wrote a piece in his class, just a homework assignment, that was wound up being published in Highlight magazine, which was the magazine that it was a kids'
It's
magazine.
national.
It was a national magazine.
Yeah.
And unbeknownst to me, I guess one of those A's, was in red ink, A all over the page. It was a beautiful thing. I just loved it. And unbeknownst to me, he had it published in the Highlight magazine. And a few months later, he presented me with this magazine and said, "Take a look."
Wow.
And what a thrill that was.
Wow.
Yeah,
And that's the kind of relationship that the teachers and students had
Exactly.
back then.
exactly.
Now, you talked about Ms. Dawson and Mr. Davis as being somewhat mentors or idols. Who are some other people that you admire or you found influenced you
In the
in
school,
your musical career?
well, I want to point out one more thing about Meigs. There was a math teacher, Mr. Hatfield.
Oh, yes.
Was he still there when you were
Yes.
there? Yes. Well, Mr. Hatfield, as you know, very slightly built
Yeah.
and very stern
Yes.
on the
Mean.
on the outside, mean sometimes. Yeah.
Teacher.
Very
No,
very hard, very
lovingly
strict.
mean, yes.
Very
because
strict.
he cared.
Because he cared. And I was not a great math student.
I understand.
But we did have a good relationship. But one of the things that really moved me to see a person, to see more than just the outside of a person, but actually just see in them. And one of the things he did for us is after a year or so of brutalizing us on the chalkboard, on a Christmas, we came into the classroom, and he had put out cookies and Kool-Aid and all that kind of stuff, and he put his feet up on the desk. Now this is a man who was so stern and strict, always a suit and tie, always a very stern demeanor. And when we walked into the classroom, he says, "Okay," he says, "this is what we're doing today." And he put his feet up on the desk, he leaned back, and just sit there and listen to this music. And we had the best time. It's the first time I saw him smile.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful thing.